On the morning of November the 13th, 1974, a tragedy unfolded that would later be buried beneath ghost stories and Hollywood scripts. Ronald DeFeo Jr., just 23 years old, murdered his entire family. 6 lives extinguished in their sleep. He later claimed demonic whispers drove him to do it. For decades, the Amityville horror has captivated audiences with tales of a haunted house that drove a family to flee after just 1 month. The film inspired countless investigations, documentaries, and sequels. But what's often forgotten, what's been overshadowed by the myth, is the real crime that made the house infamous. The Amityville Murders. The events of that November morning were not fiction. They were a brutal, real-life massacre. Ronald DeFeo Jr. fatally shot his parents and 4 younger siblings in their home at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. Hours later, he was found at a nearby bar, crying for help. At first, DeFeo told the police the killings were the work of the mob. His performance was convincing enough that officers took him into protective custody, but the truth unraveled quickly. By the next day, he confessed. He had killed his family. The trial that followed was steeped in sensational claims. DeFeo's defense argued he was insane, driven by voices no one else could hear. And then, less than a year later, a new family moved into the same house. They left after 28 days, claiming it was haunted. That claim sparked a media frenzy. The house became a legend, but the real horror, the murder of 6 innocent people, was reduced to a footnote. The DeFeo family had seemed ordinary. Neighbors described them as a nice, normal family. Ronald Sr. and Louise DeFeo lived with their 5 children, Don, Allison, Mark, John Matthew, and Ronald Jr. Their Dutch colonial home sat in a quiet, affluent part of Long Island. It had a swimming pool, a boat dock, and life-sized portraits of the family hanging on the walls. They were well known in the neighborhood. Ronald Sr. gave rides to a local girl whose family owned a restaurant in Brooklyn. Another neighbor recalled how the DeFeos reached out to her after her husband died. They seemed warm, kind, but behind closed doors, the image was far more complicated. On the surface, the DeFeos lived in comfort. Their Dutch colonial home in Amityville was a gift from Louise's father, Michael Brigante, who also funded lavish family portraits, $50,000 worth. Ronald, Big Ronnie DeFeo Sr., ran an auto dealership, but the family's wealth came from elsewhere. The luxury they displayed was not earned, it was inherited. Behind closed doors, the picture was less idyllic. Big Ronnie was known for his temper and controlling behavior. His eldest son, Ronald Jr., nicknamed Butch, bore the brunt of it. Their relationship was volatile, marked by frequent arguments and even threats. At one point, Butch reportedly aimed a gun at his father. Butch's struggles extended beyond the home. He was bullied at school for his weight, called names like Pork Chop and the Blob. By his teens, he had lost the weight, but not the pain. He turned to amphetamines and alcohol to cope, drifting further from stability. Though listed as an employee at the family's dealership, Butch rarely showed up. His days were spent drinking, using drugs, and clashing with his parents. Still, no one imagined how far things would spiral. In the early hours of November the 13th, 1974, Butch took a .35 caliber Marlin rifle and shot his father while he slept, then his mother, then one by one his siblings, 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, and 9-year-old John Matthew. After the murders, Butch showered, dressed, and disposed of the evidence, including the rifle, in a storm drain. He went to work pretending nothing was wrong. He called his father's office, made small talk with friends, and planted the seeds of his alibi. That evening, he burst into a local bar, shouting for help. "Someone shot my family," he cried. Patrons followed him back to the house, where they found a scene too horrific to comprehend. 6 bodies face down in their beds. Ronald Sr. and Louise had been shot twice, each child once. Police arrived to find Butch visibly shaken. He claimed the mob was responsible and was taken into protective custody, but inconsistencies quickly surfaced. The timeline did not match. The alleged hitman wasn't even in the state. By the next day, Butch confessed. "Once I started," he told police, "I just could not stop. It went so fast." His trial in October 1975 drew national attention, not just for the brutality of the crime, but for the defense's bizarre claims. His attorney argued that Butch was insane, driven by demonic voices, and had acted on self-defense. The courtroom became a spectacle, but the real tragedy, the loss of 6 lives, was already being eclipsed. In October 1975, Ronald DeFeo Jr. stood trial for murder of his entire family. The courtroom was captivated, not just by the brutality of the crime, but by the strange defense his lawyer presented, that DeFeo was insane, driven by demonic voices, and had acted in self-defense. He was found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 consecutive terms of 25 years to life. But even with the verdict, the story was far from over. Unsettling questions lingered. How had all 6 victims died so quietly, face down in their beds, without signs of struggle? Why hadn't neighbors heard the gunshots, despite no silencer being used? DeFeo claimed he had drugged his family's dinner, but toxicology reports did not support that theory. Most haunting of all was the motive. While DeFeo's relationship with his father was clearly volatile, it remained unclear why he would also target his mother and younger siblings. Over the years, he changed his story repeatedly, sometimes implicating Dawn, sometimes Louise, but the truth remained elusive. Then, in December 1975, the house welcomed new occupants, George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children. They stayed for just 28 days, fleeing in terror and claiming the house was haunted by the spirits of the murdered DeFeos. Their accounts: green slime oozing from walls, shattered windows, levitating beds, read like scenes from a horror film. And soon, that's exactly what they became. In 1977, Jay Anderson published The Amityville Horror, based on the Lutz experiences and the investigations of famed paranormal researchers Ed and Lorraine Warren. 2 years later, the story hit theaters, cementing the legend. Over a dozen films followed, each one drifting further from the truth. Meanwhile, DeFeo remained in prison, bitter about the notoriety he had gained. He continued to alter his story, offering new versions of events that only deepened the mystery. He died in 2021 at the age of 69. I guess the Amityville Horror really is supposed to be me, DeFeo once said, because I'm the one that got convicted of killing my family. I'm the one they say who did it. I'm the one that's supposed to be possessed by the devil. But the real horror was not possession. It wasn't green slime or shattered windows. It was the murder of 6 innocent people. To this day, no subsequent residents of the Amityville house have reported paranormal activity. Perhaps the haunting was never supernatural, but manufactured for profit. When people think of Amityville, they often remember the Lutz family and the haunting they claim to endure. But the true victims were not made famous by books or Hollywood. They were Don, Allison, Mark, John Matthew, Louise, and Ronald Sr., a family erased in one night. Let us not forget them. Let us remember the truth behind the legend.